What happens when finessing and taking advantage of someone based on what you perceive as ignorance or cowardice goes wrong? For a while, back in 2016, even up until now, getting over on someone or finessing was a trendy thing to do. Whether it was setting someone up to be robbed, using fake money to buy something from someone, selling a fake product, or simply shorting someone, meaning you did not give them the amount that they paid for. All these different ways of being finessed and backdoored can make someone that works hard for their money and values good business want to crash out or retaliate for what they perceive as disrespect and poor moral judgment. Unfortunately, that would be the case for 19-year-old Amonie Tyree Ervin. This is Morbid Stories' Lair. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's free to you, but helps me out tremendously. Amonie was a Maumee, Ohio native, a son, a brother, an uncle, a respectful individual, a music and animal lover, according to his mother. Sadly, on November 29th, 2019, at around 3:51 p.m., that would all change. Amonie was involved in the floral business. He had a particular customer that he had done business with in the past, but the customer began to have discrepancies about Amonie's business practices. Namely, the fact that there was always flowers missing from the bouquet, or less weight than agreed upon. This had happened twice before. The customer vowed next time that it would be different. The customer was Tyler Miller, a 16-year-old Perrysburg native whom, according to peers, was a tad bit odd, a loner that stayed to himself and didn't have many friends. Tyler had a very interesting way of looking at life and believed that any disrespect needed to be met with a much more vile violation. So on a Friday, in the quiet Perrysburg neighborhood of Tonbridge Court, Tyler decided that he would carry out his violation. He proceeded to contact Amonie for a special order of flowers, half an O worth or half a bouquet, and requested that Amonie deliver the flowers to his home. It is unclear if Amonie thought that this was suspicious or if any red flags went off in his head, but he agreed, and the two set up a time to meet. Amonie would arrive at Tyler's home under the notion that he was simply delivering some flowers. Tyler, of course, had other plans. Upon arriving, Amonie would text Tyler and inform him of his presence in the driveway. Tyler would steel his nerves and head out to the car. Tyler would exit his home through the garage where Amonie would be parked waiting. Tyler proceeded to get into the car with Amonie. Without saying a word, Tyler would pull a kitchen utensil from his pocket and begin violating Amonie. In a frenzy, Amonie began trying to ward off Tyler's advances, but due to the heart, lung, and neck injuries, Amonie's efforts were in vain.
We begin with breaking news tonight out of Perrysburg. Police have located their person of interest after a body was found outside of a home. Good evening, I'm Jamie Innes. Ryan has the night off. Police were called to the tonbridge court home this afternoon around 4. They say the body had serious injuries and that neighbors tried to perform CPR. They're investigating the death as a homicide and put out the search for 16-year-old Tyler Miller.
We believe that the possible suspect knew this person, so there's some different avenues we're looking at on that end, but just so the people are aware that we don't believe this was a random type of thing.
Police are not releasing the victim's identity or age.
Tyler sharp force poked Amonie 20 plus times before exiting the car and fleeing on foot. Amonie struggled from his injuries, frantically got out of the car, and began trying to pull his shirt off to examine himself. He never got his shirt over his head before collapsing in the driveway. Neighbors would react virtually immediately, first calling the police, then rushing to Amonie's aid, giving CPR and carrying out other life-saving measures that would sadly be in vain as well. Upon the arrival of emergency services, Amonie would be pronounced unalived, making his tragic story the first in over 20 years in Perrysburg. Search efforts for the suspect would begin immediately. Not long after the initiation of the search, Tyler would be found with a kitchen utensil in his pocket and what appeared to be red bodily fluid on his clothes. He was transported to the Wood County Juvenile Detention Center in Bowling Green, Ohio. Tyler would be interrogated about the events that occurred in his driveway. And this is where Tyler's oddities come into play, because Tyler proceeded to tell the detectives that he carried out the violation on Amonie because he finessed them on flowers in the past, and he wanted revenge. With no intentions of purchasing more flowers, he set up the meeting with Amonie. He then told them he grabbed the utensil from the kitchen and carried out the act with no remorse, and not even so much as a feeling towards what he was doing. According to court documents, Tyler romanticized the situation and made himself the hero in this story somehow, explaining how he was quicker and stronger than Amonie, giving him the edge that allowed him to see through his plans. He even went on to say that he did not see anything wrong with what he had done and didn't see why others did either. Concluding the interrogation, Tyler's charges would be upgraded to adult charges in the days following, not only because of his chilling confession, but because of the threats he made to the staff at the juvenile center, witnesses to the case, and other juveniles at the facility.
The 16-year-old teen facing aggravated murder charges in a Perrysburg killing will be tried as an adult. Tyler Miller appearing in Wood County Juvenile Court this morning. He waived his right to a probable cause hearing, and now a grand jury will decide whether or not to indict him. Miller is charged for killing 19-year-old Amonie Ervin at the end of November in Perrysburg. Ervin stabbed multiple times. Miller will be held at the Wood County Justice Center. The prosecutor says he was a potential threat to others in the juvenile detention center.
He will be transported to the adult county jail in Wood County immediately thereafter. In an attempt to have Tyler's charges reduced, his attorney would send him for a psychological evaluation, the results being that he did not fit the criteria for an insanity defense. Tyler would ultimately plead guilty and be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Motion to be found not guilty by reason of insanity would not be well taken. It is their medical opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that at the time of the offense, the defendant did not suffer from a mental disease or defect which rendered him incapable of knowing the wrongfulness of his act. And of course, there's paragraphs of support for that finding. Based upon that, the court would find that the defendant does not qualify to be found not guilty by reason of insanity. Mr. Dobson, what would the evidence have been had the case proceeded to a trial?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Your Honor, had this case gone to trial, the state would have presented the appropriate witnesses, including several members of the Perrysburg Police Department, who collectively, Perrysburg Police Department, Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification Investigation, and again, several other witnesses who collectively would have testified that on or about the 29th day of November 2019 in Wood County, Ohio, the defendant, Tyler Miller, determined to cause the death of Amonie Ervin. To go through with that, he called Mr. Ervin and asked to meet with him. In anticipation of killing Mr. Ervin, Mr. Miller took a knife from his kitchen, which resembled a steak knife. It was a fixed blade knife, 4 or 5 inches long. He met with Mr. Ervin in Mr. Ervin's car in the driveway of Mr. Miller's residence in Perrysburg, Wood County, Ohio. While meeting with Mr. Ervin, Mr. Miller stabbed Mr. Ervin repeatedly with that steak knife. Mr. Ervin exited the vehicle, stumbled behind his car, collapsed in the driveway where he died. Testimony of the members of the Lucas County Coroner's Office would have indicated that he died, that his death was caused directly by the stab wounds that he had suffered. After stabbing Mr. Ervin, Mr. Miller went back into his house, up to his bedroom where he got his cigarettes and left his home. Mr. Miller was found by police officers several hours later at a residence of a friend of his still in Perrysburg, several blocks away. He was taken into custody at that time, and a knife was found in his pocket with blood on it that at the time Mr. Miller indicated was the knife that he had used to stab Mr. Ervin. During his custodial Mirandized interview, Mr. Miller confessed to killing Mr. Ervin, including that he had planned it ahead of time, that he had gone to the vehicle with the intention of stabbing and killing Mr. Ervin, that it was originally his intention at that time to take Mr. Ervin's vehicle and attempt to flee, to drop off Mr. Ervin's body in a different location. All of this plan was frustrated by Mr. Ervin when he got out of the vehicle and collapsed in the driveway. Again, Mr. Miller would have, the testimony would have been that Mr. Miller confessed specifically to intentionally causing the death of Mr. Ervin, and that he had done it through a plan and an intention that he had established ahead of time. All of this would have constituted a violation of Ohio Revised Code Section 2903.01A, aggravated murder, an unclassified felony.
Mr. Nunnery, based upon the discovery you've received in this case and talking to your client, does he contest those facts?
It does not, Your Honor.
And in your opinion, would those facts be sufficient to support a conviction for this charge?
They would be, Your Honor.
Mr. Miller, is that what happened?
Yeah.
You understand that this is a life sentence and parole could be granted after 20, 25, 30 years, or the parole board could decide that it would be life without parole. You understand that?
Yeah.
I will find then that your plea is entered knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently. I will accept your plea and find you guilty of the offense of aggravated murder, an unclassified felony. Now, we've already established a date of June the 4th at 9:30 for sentencing in this matter.
Thankfully, justice was served for Amonie, and I hope his family can find the peace and forgiveness they need to continue on with life. Do you think someone having shady business practices means they should be unalived? And do you think the judge was too harsh or not harsh enough in this case as far as Tyler's sentence? Let me know in the comments. This has been Morbid Stories with Lair, and keep your head on a swivel so you don't get hit with that nickel.